Yes, that's good. Good morning. Good morning, all. Are we rolling off into the interweb land? Well, welcome. It's been a week. Welcome. It's been a week. Lots happening this week. So, our goals today, a while back we set aside this time. Catherine worked it into the schedule, figuring this was our last Sunday of life as usual-ish at Calvary as we move toward our next phase. So we've got two parts happening today. The first thing we're going to do is kind of walk through, Charles and David and I will walk through how things are going to unfold in the next few months. And we're going to try to, and then have some time for your questions and curiosities as well. And then we're going to try to get out a little before 10, maybe at 10 till 10 or so you'll have time, if you'd like, to walk across and see the welcome in. And Christine's here, so she can be Vanna, pointing out the glory of that wonderful ministry space as well. And to entice you further, there are cookies over there. So, very good. Well, so a little bit of where we are. Nothing major has changed since the last time we presented the shift in scope in the organ room, but some dates have settled in and then some responses to those. We had every expectation, because we're hopeful people, that we would actually have our construction document numbers. They were supposed to be in last Monday, which means we hope they'll be in tomorrow. So part of this was to really, we thought we would have the week to actually do some specific kind of, each time you get numbers, you go into what they call value engineering, which means taking out some of the stuff you want and that you couldn't afford and putting in some cool stuff that you can afford. So that's still to come, but without those numbers, we can still let you know what the schedule is, how the areas will be addressed generally, kind of what our priorities are. Charles will talk about the church. David will talk about the work flowing down here. But first, I'll let you know a little bit about schedule. So as you know, in May already, a couple of weeks ago, the renovation of the organ began. That's actually, maybe you saw us in the news. I don't know. We got famous. So the organ renovation began, and it's on its way, or it's arrived in Boston now, safely. That will be an 18-month process. That doesn't mean we'll be without the instrument entirely for 8 months. I think Kristen said 5 or 6 months they estimate when pieces will come back, enough to have a functioning instrument just without its full range. So in June, Grinder Chamber Grinder will begin phase 1, and that phase includes the work in the church. So that's why today, we did this at 8 o'clock. We're going to do it at 10:30 as well. At the end of the service, we're a liturgical innovation, as they call it. We're going to process out of church and invite everybody to process out into this space. Before the dismissal, we're going to actually say a prayer of dedication to this space where we'll be saying our prayers for the next about 4 months. So I'll say it again in announcements, but you can be leaders. Bring your order of service with you after church, right back out into this room where we'll dedicate this space. The renovation of the church will take place, and then the renovation of floors 3 and 4 in this building. This was Grinder Tabor Grinder's recommendation. What this allows us to do is we are packing up our 4th floor offices now, and this coming Friday, which I'll mention also at church, will be the last day for Calvary Place children and that ministry. Mary had a lovely meal where we joined with teachers who have faithfully been tending to children in this space for the past 30 years. At the end of this week, they will be finish their ministry, and then we will move out in June of the 4th floor and kind of inhabit the 1st floor where we can in temporary offices for the next 4 months. Then the construction can take place in the nave and also in floors 3 and 4, which will give us flexible use for a variety of things for the longer term when we move into this area. Offices, the plan is to move offices, again, back up to the 4th, but just basic temporary stuff. We'll take our little file cabinets and our desks. We're not going to hang Yvette's not going to hang her 368 crosses back on the wall that she just took and filed and cataloged. So that's kind of the movement. Fourth floor, first floor. Then fourth floor will be for phase 2. And about October, we're taking them at their word. About 4 months in the church. We hope to be complete in October, which gives us a little bit of cushion even to get back into our new worship space before Christmas. And we'll move back up to the fourth floor, and the renovation will begin on these 2 buildings in earnest, right? So everything outside the church, except for those two floors, off to the south, that will all be under construction at that point. And then October 23, the project will be completed on time and under budget. Yeah. Will that intention off into the universe. Oh, I'm sorry, October 2024. I messed that up. I typed that quickly. I'm not quite that hopeful. Type that quickly. October 2024. Just seeing if you're paying attention. So that's the gist of how things are going to move. I'll pause for a second. Any of that confusing besides the last year? Questions on that? Worship specifically and other ministries starting next Sunday, both the 8 o'clock and the 10:30 will be in this room, as I mentioned. It'll be reconfigured. We have located a piece of furniture we think will make a good altar. It'll be oriented toward the south. We're going to do this kind of arches of chairs this way. If you've been to one of our evening LPS events, that's how we have set up chairs to people feel close, and it's pretty efficient. 8 and 10:30 will be in here. The 9:15 forum will be down in the organ room. This will be easy for those breakfast folks if they want to slip over into the organ room. It gives us a chance to kind of start inhabiting that space. And then we are starting a new service because we are gluttons for punishment. We are starting a new service. We are really excited about this. A simple service at 6 o'clock on Sunday evenings. And it'll probably start with maybe no music, but some new language around liturgy, some new ways of engaging the gospel texts. We have a little more room to experiment in that simple service and let it become what it will become in conversation with the people who like to say their prayers at that time. Choirs, classes, EYC, community ministries for those first 4 months will pretty much be in there, with a few exceptions. The youth room's going to be disrupted. With a few exceptions, will kind of continue because they happen in these 2 buildings for those 4 months. In October, when they're finished on time and under budget in the church, worship services will return to the nave. This will become the construction site. And that'll be all 3 services. If we continue with the 6 o'clock, all 3 would be over there. Choirs, classes, EYC, community ministries, these other aspects of our life that have been displaced, we have a few options that will still live into them. We took a tour of St. Mary's Cathedral and their spaces, which they're being renovated. We took Mary and Waffle Shop over there and community ministries folks because the interim dean said, "You are welcome. If we can work our schedules around, we think we could be in partnership with them and infuse some helpful life." Maybe Waffle Shop, that was the one that seemed most likely, as Mary was talking, that 1 year to have Waffle Shop over at the cathedral and have our shuttle come back and forth to our new nave. But again, these are still in conversation, but these are our opportunities that have been made available. Grizzlies Prep has been very generous. Tim Ware, the CEO there, has said, "Sure, you guys have been hosts to us, and how can we help you make space?" So once upon a time, we thought we might be worshiping in Grizzlies Prep, but it's going to work to just do that in here and then in the church. 4 months in here, and then the rest of the time over back in the church when it's renovated. But we will also have access to space for, say, Wednesday evening classes. And so Grizzlies Prep rooms for evening when they're not in school, and then Welcome In. We are doing our best to set aside really for outreach work, for room in the inn, closed closet. If we borrow that space, it will be on a specific basis where I'll call Christine and we'll say, on Tuesday at 2, could I have a meeting over on that side of the Welcome In? But so much happens with regard to outreach and community ministries. We want to keep that space designated. and possibly your living room. We hope that the vestry is committed to having some events that keep people connected. Clay's been involved in that, some brainstorming about over the next, especially through the end of the year, what could they do to plant some events out in the world, in our neighborhoods, some of them here, that help keep us connected in a time of disruption. So who knows? You may want to host something in your living room that holds this body of folks together. Questions on that quick run through the timeline before Charles comes and talks about how we're approaching the church? All right, Charles. I'll put up a floor plan if that's helpful.
Well, over the course of all of this, you've seen many different iterations of what might be happening in the nave. And at this point, here's what's going to happen. Obviously the organ. Secondly, the choir area of the chancel, which has a parquet floor, we're going to change that to a stone floor. We're going to move the communion rail forward just a bit to give more room behind it for serving communion. And we're going to do a ramp up into the choir area over on the north side next to the pulpit. We're also going to put railings going up to the chancel, make it easier for old folks like me to get to communion. And that's pretty much the font, which we showed in earlier iterations was going to be in the back of the church. Will not be. It'll be in the front of the church like it is now. It's been interesting to watch the pictures on Facebook of Holy Communion, which went to a lot of trouble to move it to the back. And every single baptism I've seen online has been in the front. They put a movable font in, and everybody seems to want it in the front. So we're just going to skip that little sidetrack and leave it up front where you can see. We are then going to remove the pews. While they're out, we will refinish the floor and clean the ceiling. Not clean as in Grace St. Luke's yellow ceiling, but just get the dirt and grime off. Apparently, a lot of that will help the acoustics in the space because there's so many years of accumulation of candle wax and other stuff that goes up and all that. It'll lighten it a little bit, but it'll also make it a little more live in the space. We are not replacing the pews. That was a dream, but that can happen at a later time, which means that the middle piece does not come out like we'd hoped for, but that can be done when we do replace the pews. We will respace them, however, so they will be the proper spacing so that people can actually get past you to get to their seat without everybody having to evacuate the pew to let somebody into the middle. We are, I think, removing the screens in the back. We've been told by the consultant that we've used that just invites people to stand back there and talk and jingle all their change in their pockets and make all kinds of noise because they think they're not part of the space, but they are, and they're disturbing everybody. What we may do is cut that back pew in half with the screen and put it against the wall. So those are all things that we're thinking about. And at this point, everything's cost-driven because we've got to make sure that what we do fits what we've been able to raise. We do plan on trying to make the lanterns dimmable. They're the only things in there now that are not LED lighting, so they're very inefficient energy-wise. And we'd like to convert them to LEDs, but we can't until we do some work on them to make them so that they will be compatible with the LEDs. So we are continuing to use the chancel furniture and railings that are there now, but they will be refinished. If you look at pictures of it when it was done in the 1950s, it was mid-century yellow oak. It has, like this, it's getting there, and maybe in another 50 years it might be where we want it to be, but we're just going to speed it up a little bit. And so that there'll be a lot of things that if you don't look closely, you might not notice that the space has changed a lot. That's our goal. I think everybody likes the feel of the church. We just need to bring it up to where it's more accessible and more comfortable and is a little more lively space in terms of singing and praying and speaking. So that's it. We're not putting the carpets back either for the same reason. And I've been in churches that have taken their carpets out and it works. So, all right. Next. David.
Sure, whatever. Hey everybody, David Lusk. After whatever 15 years of talking about renovations, I'm sure you're tired of seeing me and hearing me, and I'm tired of myself on that. But we're close, right? Really close. One thing to add to Scott's, today is the last day of the rummage sale. No unreasonable offer will be refused. So please go down there and take whatever you want and drop a few coins in a box. Let's get rid of the stuff. And that's phase one of the rummage sale. Phase two is right before phase two that Scott talked about earlier. So at this point, everybody kind of knows the flow, at least in this room. Everybody knows the flow that we've been talking about. I think the exciting thing for all of you and all of us to work with right now is what are the minor details? How do we start living into it, into our new spaces as Calvary has all these years? From my line of work, it's like finding a nice white painted wall with nothing on the walls, and you're ready to put new things out there. So what Charles didn't mention, we'll have new cushions in the church, which will be nice. Yay! Moving from that, marching from church over, the great endowment boards that are in the bell tower right now, those beautiful Gothic endowment listing boards, those will probably move to Bride's Walk. We'll have walls here to be filled with things. We'll have hardwood floors going around the circle onto this floor all the way. We'll have new paint. We won't have orange wallpaper out there in that area. We'll have a fireplace on the other side of this room. We'll have a piano in this room. We'll have new non-leaking floors in this courtyard. We'll have lots of sunshine coming in from the south onto the first floor. We'll have a big 2-story atrium with lots of walls and lots of space and natural light overhead. We'll have a chapel on the first floor. Straight through there. All right, dig this, everybody. Bethlehem Chapel right now has 5 Dorothy Sturm stained glass windows, large ones. They're in good shape. They haven't had rocks thrown through them, which is an exciting point. Those, at this iteration, will go on the far west wall of the chapel, backlit like they are in Montgomery Foyer right now, if you know what those look like. So there'll be a little sense of both our history and some more religiosity going, obviously, into that chapel space. There are other Dorothy Sturm windows, 4 more of those, that might even go on second floor between the kids' classrooms. Just some history of ours coming back to the new spaces. Another thing that Yvette pointed out that I rarely look at, In the Bride's Walk, as you go into the nave right now, there's a passage, there's a scripture passage over that doorway. You know, that'll find a home somewhere, as yet unknown in my mind at least. So the things like that, those points of Calvary patina are going to really enliven and bring history back to the new spaces. So that's it on my agenda, kind of to talk about it, to help all of us dream together. What questions do you have about where things are moving or what things should find a new home? And if you don't come up with them now, like you've been doing for the past 2 years, please keep those comments to me. Suzanne made a great comment several months ago about being sure we have good lights on the triptych window in the altar so that for evening services in dark, those will be lit and will shine forth while we're inside the church. So throw them at me or throw them to Scott or throw them to Ebed or whomever as we go through. Again, you all are the choir. You know what we're doing on this. And thanks, right? It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. One thing to add while I take this over here is that we're going to concentrate on, if our budget, if we're working on it, we're going to concentrate on what has to happen together inside, and we'll wait on whatever we have to wait on outside to make this work.
I've been in churches where they've had a history outline of the church. Is there a place where we can maybe have that, where people, you know, and maybe put the dead Rexter's pictures up somewhere? I don't know. Not in a conspicuous place, but have them somewhere. If
yeah, I think the history point is great. So, yeah, to keep in mind on that. We have a long, illustrious history, right? We ought to be showing it off.
David, are they going to open up the gate down here where there's a railing as the church is built, where the handicap can go up in?
Yeah, the courtyard on the south side of the bell tower?
No, right out here, right out here by the front door.
Yeah, yes, that courtyard will be open to the street. It won't be ironed off. The courtyard on the north, presumably, will the gate and fence will stay.
For the handicap, you know, where they could use and everything.
There will be a big ramp. Yes.
That's a big important piece, is the new handicap ramp that gets people up into the church from the front.
But I'm talking about right while they're building it.
Oh yes, while they're building, there will be a temporary ramp.
There's a ramp right now that will go from 2nd Street up to the church.
Yes, there will be.
Yes? Okay. The man behind you said yes on that one.
Yeah, I've talked to him at the contractors so that folks can get in from the front during construction. Yep.
And like that, the other piece that we didn't talk about, Scott and I and the contractors have been, is, you know, what about restrooms when we're in that phase 2 section? So that's still to be figured out. Porta potties are nice, everybody. They're glamorous porta potties now. Jan.
This is a question for Charles. In one iteration, the screen in front of the choir, that 1950s railing thing that goes across the front, was gone. And boy, I love that open platform look. Is it coming back?
That screen now is movable. It's movable with great difficulty, but it's movable. And the intention at this point is to still have it, but have it where it's a little more easily taken in and out. Because there are times when we need that whole space, particularly, say, when we did the Messiah this year. But that we want to kind of keep as much of the feel as we can.
This courtyard behind us, which is so beautiful and we don't really use as much as we could, how is it going to be affected, and how will it tie in with everything else?
Well, I think, as David mentioned, we're going to work on the floor of it. The idea is to move the floor up to this level to make it where it's more accessible, and then to have the drainage go through that and into new drains underneath so that we can stop the leaks. At this point, we're doing just the 2 doorways that are here, At some point, we may see if we can add doors to it. But we are expanding the Bride's Walk this way some and also forward some, but not such that you would drive by and say, wait, what did they do? It's going to blend in with what's here.
It's got such a difference in level, floor level, from the new Bride's Walk to the courtyard. It would be 2 or maybe 3 steps down. So we're trying to make everything very wheelchair and mobility accessible. So it was tough to make stairs and door from Bride's Walk down to courtyard. So yeah, the entrances are from here as they are right now. The other thing, Jan, on your question about the screens, Charles, you want to talk about the screens between pulpit and lectern and the absence of those?
Scott's getting his exercise for the day. No, the screen in the front is not going to be put back. There will be steps across there, but there won't be that screen. That's, for one thing, that's trapping the choir noise as well as the organ overpowers it, but still. It will open it up a little bit and make it look still the look that's there, but it just won't have that barrier. There will be probably the privacy screen in front of the front pew like it is now, but the other part will make it easier for baptisms and all. They can stand up where you can see them.
Kendra Martin would like to know where the tree in the organ room is going.
David's stepping aside. For those of you who don't know, there's a tree in the organ room that folks baptized, especially in the 90s. I'm not sure when that practice stopped, early 2000s maybe. A leaf was added to those trees. So it's not something that's continued to be a part of people's life. So when we saw it, we thought we're going to get in contact. Yvette is cataloging everybody on that tree. And it's still up there now, but we'll take it down and return those leaves to their families as a memento for their baptisms. It's lovely. It's beautiful. There's a big gap, too, which would have been the problem with just, moving it into the nursery, say, because it would have been it would have left a lot of people out. So we think that it's been beautiful, and I didn't know it was up there for a minute while I was here, but lovely tradition. We're going to return them to their families. Any other questions before we head south? And Christine will lead the tour over there. I think David and Charles and I probably be hanging out here if you've got closer up questions. Clay?
It's not really a question, more of an announcement. Please join us after the service for coffee hour in here. We are planning small groups as well as larger parties throughout the construction process. If anyone would like to host a party, please feel free to talk to Terry Delaney or me, or email or call us. We have some hosts already, and we'll be announcing those, but we are looking for some more. So if anyone would like to be involved in that, we would love to have you participate.
Thanks, Clay. Coffee hour back here. It will be, I understand the room will be different by the time we get out of church, a little bit. Okay, thanks for your questions, curiosity, attention. Keep in conversation. Like I said, we haven't got those numbers back, so some of the specific decisions that we hope to make in response that Charles and David alluded to haven't been able to be made yet, but we will keep you in touch. Tell us what you see, what you hear, what you hope for. Go in peace and check out Welcome In. Thanks, y'all.